Hey kids, welcome to another episode of Glen Yaps. This one's just a short little one. Basically, this one is just about the mixer that I'm using. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's the anniversary of Porcupine Tree's Dead Wing album. And I love Porcupine Tree, and I love that album. I love the previous one and the one after, which is Fear of a Blank Planet. So it got me into this kind of thought pattern of when you're doing your own music and recording it. When is it enough to just work with the gear that you have and not keep buying new gear all the time? It can be a sickness. I know I was pretty possessed to keep buying gear and buying gear and buying gear. But I found I was spending more time learning the new gear than actually songwriting or completing projects. It got to the point I was trying to do it all, and every time I'd upgrade, I have to rethink everything from all the stuff I've done before. I had to rethink it all the time, and I would never get the material recorded properly. It was like, okay, well then I got this new this, and I may as well re-record this, and you never get shit done. So I had to say to myself, it's like, okay, enough's enough. So as for the major gear in the studio, it's good enough for me right now. I can't foresee myself upgrading to anything else. So I'm using what they call an analog board. This is a Mackie 32 channel by 8 bus mixing desk. And this desk has what they call the meter bridge. I'll show you the view in a second of the board and that. Has the meter bridge. What a meter bridge is just an LED light readout of levels for all 32 channel. You don't need the meter bridge because obviously you're recording into software. There are meters everywhere in the software and stuff like that, but I've always used analog boards for decades and decades with my live shows and stuff, and for doing some recording on a smaller scale, and I just find it handy. That's just me though. It does have meters, actual meters with the needles, 2 of them for the masters, left and right. Anyways, the reason why I bring up the Porcupine Tree album is because I got to know Gavin Harrison, the drummer, a little bit through MySpace years ago, just talking tech and drums and recording, and I heard his drumming on the Dead Wing album first, and then I went back and got their back catalog, and that Dead Wing was only his second album with the band. They had a previous drummer, and then I got the album after. So those 3 albums were basically recorded using parts of that album. Parts of those 3 albums were recorded on this exact model of Mackie board. Gavin Harrison one, you can see pictures and video of him recording his drum tracks in what looks to be his garage, which is converted to a studio, and this mixer sitting there without the meter bridge. So I talked to him about it, and yeah, he worked with this desk for 10 to 12 years prior to doing those albums. I think that's how it was worded. I've always seen him with this board, and his drum set was like mine, just a bit over, and he'd be At that time, it looked like he was running back and forth to start the program to record. But he did some amazing drumming on these 3 albums. Like, if you haven't heard these 3 albums, it's like Gavin Harrison is just sick good. And he understands the engineering side of it. So what he said in a couple of the articles was he worked a long time to perfect the sounds on this particular mixer. But now he's moved on. Obviously, he's gotten even better and stuff, and he can afford to, upgrade. But I'm just saying that 3 good solid albums at least had the drum tracks alone done on this board. And to me, that's all I need. It's like, if I even come just a hair close to what he achieved with his drum sound, then I'm more than happy. Since I'm buying this desk a few years ago, like anything, you work at it and you improve and you improve. Is it everybody's taste? Probably not, because every musician has their own vision, their ears tuned to a different type of sound. But for what I do, I love it. It does everything I want it to do. Now, my audio signal, the analog signal, I convert using a MOTU unit, which is basically the 24 in and out module, which can take 24 audio tracks, and my computer can record 24 tracks at one time with this one MOTU unit. Now, I have a second MOTU unit, or I can double that. I can run up to 3 MOTU units. And depending on the bit rate that I'm using, I can record. If I had a bigger desk, more channels, I could actually record all of the full band down here with everything mic'd. So obviously space doesn't permit that, but I really like these old school MOTU conversion units. Once I first got it, like when I first got it, it was tricky because it has its own software. But like anything, you practice and you practice and you get better at it. I did miss one key function on it because when I was recording songs with my friend Tony, is the software has its own gains, the mixer has its gains. And what I didn't know is if I'm using the gains on this analog board, I don't need the gains in the software. So some of the signals were getting not to my liking. So once that hit me, I went back and said, it's like these things. You go, you record a couple of songs and you go, okay. You sit down, you're not happy with it, so you're going, how can this be improved? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? So it's one of those deals after, I think it was like 4 or 5 years of recording different things and gradually getting a better product, I was still missing some things. And so you have to basically bite the bullet and open up the manuals and start looking at this, like, what am I missing in here? I must be missing something. And I did. I missed this gain thing. So it was basically, I was running 2 gain patterns from the board and also the software, which was incorrect. Also, get good cabling and good microphones. Obviously, the most expensive microphones, you can run up to $10,000, $20,000 for microphones. Well, that ain't gonna happen here. I started like most people with the basics, like Shure 57s, and did what I could with those, and just kept upgrading and experimenting with different mics. Am I totally happy with what I've got? No, because you have your dream gear that you would always wish you had or in your collection, but it's not achievable, at least not for me. I couldn't justify spending $10,000 on a ribbon microphone you know, just so my drums sound just a little bit better. I just can't do that. So I had to make do with what I have. But there are some cool things if you're reading online on some of these recording forums, where some old mics can be modified. Some simple mics can be modified. Like I have a bunch of these Shure microphones. They're like a plate, big, like a square plate like this, and the microphone sits here. And I was first exposed to them from a band I played in. The singer used to put one in each corner of the bar and put his tape deck there and record the band. And we couldn't believe the sound quality out of these two corner. They had a hole in them, so you just put a tack in the wall, and these mics would sit there. Then guys were experimenting. They were putting them in their kick drums, laying them in the bottom, and it's like the same mic. And the model escapes me at the moment, but I have two on a kit on the other side. I don't have one in this studio, but I have two on the drum set in the other half of my recording studio. One on the floor, on the drums, I don't know, maybe 8 feet away. And the other one is in the ceiling, in between a couple of the joists, because over there it's a lower ceiling. But you get a really good sound because of that low ceiling. But the beams, I left them exposed, so there's wood, and I put this just screw nailed it right into the floor joist, and get just this great sound. So I'm gonna put a couple more in this room eventually, and they're inexpensive. So there's mods for these particular mics, and they're 1/4 inch, so you can convert them to low impedance, no problem. And you can have them run off phantom power because they're a battery mic, but I've used them as a battery mic and running into a direct box, and it works fine. It's your choice. So there's so many little tricks that you have to at least spend some time attempting them. And like I say, this mixer, I bought it from a studio in California, and I had it shipped up here. These boards were going for quite a few bucks in the day, but now you can find them for $1,000 or cheaper. I paid a little more than $1,000 if I remember right. The meter bridge costs more, like I say, but you don't need it. But I like it. I use it. So it's one of those deals. Find a good enough mixer that's going to mic everything you got in a room. This is my opinion. I tried with the small mixers, the little 6 channels and all that crap. It's like, I hated it. I kept going up and said, well, I don't have enough channels to do what I want. So I said, well, I got a massive drum set that I use in my studio. It's got to be covered, top to bottom mics. I don't want one mic missed on that kit. Then I've got channels left over that I can have my bass rig always in the mixer, also the keyboards, guitars, so everything, I just have to click a switch and they're engaged. And that's the beauty of having a home studio, because you're never going to unplug this stuff. It's ready to go. Whenever you get an idea, it's ready to go. So Gavin Harrison, he worked with this mixer. Geddy Lee had this mixer when he was doing a solo album, My Favorite Headache, I believe that's the album title. He used the same mixer for doing all his demo work. But Gavin Harrison, the drum tracks you hear on those albums were recorded with this in his home studio. Now his converters, he has rack mountable converters, 2 of them, like Apogee, don't quote me. It's been a while since I've read the article, but and he's used those to convert analog to digital. So, and he's obviously got better rack gear than I do, but I just do this to write songs, maybe put out a CD, like the Wishbone CDs and stuff like that, just for enjoyment. You know, if somebody gets interested in a song or whatever, that's great. But I'm not in this to become the world's greatest engineer. I would go to school for that if that was what I wanted. I'm just a musician that likes to write my own music and post it online. And if people like it, that's great. And if I want to do a CD, I at least want the quality there for that. And this is more than enough to achieve that. If you want to get into this, 5.1 spread, 7.1, and now there's something even more advanced than that. This can do some of it, but I mean, you're not in it for the same reason as me. You want to be an engineer, so I do not. I want to learn the parts of the engineering to make my music side of things easier. But I've put out CDs with a few bands, and I mastered the Wishbone's second album, which is a local band I played with. I mastered the second album here, but I never recorded the tracks, and I was not happy with the recorded tracks. But unfortunately, the tracks for the second album got destroyed. So even if I wanted to remix that whole entire album, I can't. The masters, unfortunately, are gone. So that's a big pill to swallow in itself. So, but anyways, so back up all your stuff, kids. But that wasn't us. That was the studio that we recorded those albums at. So that's lost the masters of the second album. So that's the scoop. I'll show you a bit of the board here. Old school. It's got some war wound marks. And more than enough. This is the meter bridge. I don't know if you can see it. There's just lights that will go up for each channel right across. You got 2 meters here. You can bounce between the channels and the sources that you're using. This is a Mackie big knobs, basically a spreader for speaker signals. These are more meters for the buses. So there are 8 vocal buses. I call them vocal buses, but it could be anything. So you can run all your drums into 2 of these and bring a whole drum set up. Or rather than all these, you can just have them assigned to this bus, stereo bus, and bring an entire drum set up, rather than having to pick all these and slide them up. You can run all vocals in here and all your guitars. It's pretty simple. It's your basic board. It looks a little more intimidating than it is. So and this is the MOTU unit. They are connected through the insert cables of the channels. You can see the snakes here. These are 1/4-inch snakes. They all go from the inserts into this MOTU unit. This MOTU unit goes into my computer, which is down here, which you probably can't see in the dark. That computer is modded quite heavily, and I get no latency whatsoever when I record. I can record 16 tracks of drums. So actually I got 17 tracks of drums here, and no latency. So it's, like I say, it works perfectly, the system. I dialed it in. I did some mods to the computer just recently. Did some upkeep stuff on it, changed memory batteries and all that stuff. And then the last bit of software I've not had issues with it after I install it. After I install it, we had, I think, one little glitch with a plug-in that was 32-bit. The whole rig is running 64-bit, and I'm usually running 48, 24. I might move it up to 96. See if the computer can handle it for some newer projects. The sound is a bit better. What it does though is it takes up a lot of storage space, so I'm going to experiment with it. But any advancements in gear are going to be minimal. Possibly maybe 2 more stereo or studio monitors. I haven't made up my mind yet. 2 top ones are Yamahas. I'll keep those. I like those. So that's the scoop. You have to know when to say that's enough. I'm way over what I really wanted to spend. I could have been spending all this money on pretty nice drum sets and guitars, but I did go a little nutty for the recording part of it. And you don't need even something this big. A Mackie, we recorded stuff on a Mackie 16 channel VLZ board. That'll get you by doing some decent recordings, just for if you're just making stuff for your friends and or just want to demo some songs. I mean, if you want to record bands and become an engineer, then, well, obviously you have to join the digital age, I guess. But the problem with the digital age is the stuff does all the work for you. It saves some work, but there's also more problems with digital. Upgrades, failures, things like that. The analog board, it is what it is. It's like a big hard piece of steel with all the components in it. You can physically touch it. Sliders, buttons, everything. I love that part of it. I do have digital mixers. I have a Touch Mix 16 by QSC, and it does some interesting recordings. I have not mastered that, but that is actually for my monitoring rig on stage. I like it, but I've had complete computer issues where the firmware was not working right, and I had to upgrade the firmware. That friggin' sucks. So this computer system in my studio is upgraded to as far as I want. It is working perfectly. I've not had issues with it since I've been at this level of upgrades. It can go even further now, but I'm not. It's staying right here. I'm not doing anything more. I want to finish songs. I want to write songs. That's it. So know your limitations of where you want to spend money, because there's so many people I know that have home studios, and it's crazy to see where everybody is level-wise. People thought I was nuts when I gutted this whole studio and started from scratch and built it up to be soundproof and stuff, but the old way it was, I just didn't like it anymore. So, and I'm totally happy now. I'm down here all the time. So that's the scoop, kids. Like I say, Gavin Harrison, drummer for Porcupine Tree, used this mixer, and it's phenomenal drum sound on those 3 albums that he used it on. Did he use it on other recordings? Not sure. I could probably find out and let you know. But just to hear those 3 albums, well, convinced me that, okay, I can live with the analog, convert it to digital. And because where am I going? It's Sault Ste. Marie, and put it online, and if you like it, fine. I have no dreams of being an engineer. So it is fun though, but it's also annoying at times too, because some things just don't work. You know, it's just, you have to experiment. So that's the scoop. I know people kind of chuckle that I'm still using this analog board, but you know what? I've heard the horror stories of digital boards when they go down, memory locks, the software goes corrupt. I got none of that. This board will always work, except if, you know, some part gets, electronic part gets starts to fail, then we need a technician to look at it. So because it's definitely beyond me. But I'm not crazy about the software mixing with digital. Like I say, I've tried it. I don't get the results I want. I'm not happy when things hang up and software fails and firmware fails and memory batteries fail. I've had one or two hard drive failures in my studio, so I like triple things, the backups. It's quite annoying, but it's all part of that. If you're using a hard drive, they will fail. And so, yeah, and then I'll be backing up some stuff today from a recording I did just the other day. So it's just one of those deals where you find your happy zone and your happy budget zone. But you can achieve good products with old analog boards. Don't let anybody fool you. Because a lot of recordings were done on analog boards converted into digital. A lot of albums, a lot of great music. You just have to research it and you'll understand. So, anyways, thanks for watching.